Mhm. Hey, everybody, how are we doing? I hope you're doing okay. Um, Really kind of an impromptu thing. Um, I actually feel the need to do this chart on Taylor Swift because, of course, on December the 12th, December the 13th, rather, is her birthday. So notable of a person. She was also just named the Time Person of the Year, the Time Magazine Person of the Year. And it's funny because even in all of her kind of like poppiness, hey, Adrian, how are you? In all of her poppiness and all of her stuff, it's really kind of interesting. I'd never really done a deep dive. I've always had a lot of respect for her, but it's also kind of been I don't really get it, but here we are. And that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it as long as I possibly can. And I thought it was really interesting when I started to pull things apart. Not only did I see trends both in her chart, but also in things like her numerology and also the people that she would date, which is kind of fun and interesting. And without further ado, I'm just going to kind of point out that not only are we going to, really kind of do a dive into who she is and what she's about here as we talk about her astrologically, but really recognize how much she has impacted things like economies and things like geology. There's a lot of things about Taylor Swift that are super interesting. And again, I, for one, kind of kept a slightly respectful distance. I would never trash her. I actually thought quite highly of her. But again, her music itself isn't there, but her lyrics are just insanely deep. They're insanely deep. If you read them as poetry, you're like, oh, how did a 20-something-year-old go there with it? Well, this year is a magical birthday. She turns 34 this year, and she's got a lot of things going on here in her chart. Today, we're just going to talk about her birth chart. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. And then, in turn, I'm going to show this to you guys, and I hope you guys kind of get a kick out of it. Not only are we going to talk about her current, her birth chart, her natal chart, and there's another just fantastic glamour shot of her. But then in part two, we're going to take a look at everybody she's ever dated. Oh, what a chart. Oh, what a chart. Superimposed. It looks like magic. It probably is. Just to let you know. That's what everybody there's a Jonas Brothers in there. Go ahead and figure it out. But anyways, before we get to this right here, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe. Head on over to my website, tbrennanruss.com. Make sure you get on the email list. I actually have a lot of exciting things. I've actually already planned them out, which is rare for me. And I'm going to have a series of announcements. I am going to be back in Florida, but where? I am going to be traveling the country, but where? I am going to be having special events, but where? I am going to be doing things here on YouTube, but what? Oh, gosh, there's so much coming. There's so many things to do. I've been hard at work, building a website, doing all this other fun stuff. And, of course, still available to do readings as well as coaching mediums, helping them become the best version of themselves, all that other good stuff. You can join too, get into the intuitive development class called the Weekly Bee. It's a lot of fun, and it's $11 a class, right? It is $44 a month. You spend that in coffee, spend it on knowledge. Hey, here we go. All right, guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and take a look at Miss Swifty's chart here. She should probably be the mainstay, don't you think, guys? I think so. So let's take a look at this. She is a near full moon, but she is not a full moon. And one of the first things as an astrologer that makes me go, whoa, hold on a second. The only real thing that plays on her sun is the South Node, is her comfortability there. She is not conjunct to anything in her sun. She is not in opposition of anything, although she's very close. I mean, she is within 5 minutes of being, it's still in a technical full moon if it was a wide conjunct, but she's not. She's not actually a full moon. But I will tell you, those of you that are natal nurses and love the idea that, of course, the full moon breaks everybody, pregnant, have their kid. This is proof positive of it. She was in full labor. Just even 2 hours earlier, even if it was a quick birth, she was born during a full moon. She was contracted during a full moon. So there's some evidence of that. But in her chart, though, for evidentiary and then what she's going to take forward, her moon doesn't necessarily play on that, but the moon has other roles. We'll get to it in a second. But when it comes to the sun, being a Sagittarius sun at the angle of 21 degrees is a pretty fantastic thing. That makes her a 3. By the way, she is a life path 7, which means that she is the truth seeker. She is somebody that is going to come out of the box. By the way, I'm going to have more of that in the next segment. Yes, I'm kind of joking around about doing a chart on everybody she's ever dated, but come on, that was a lot of work. That kind of made fun, right? One of the things that you're also going to take a look at with this is her stelliums. She is stacked and packed. She has 3 areas in which she actually has a lot of activity, right? She has it here in her 2nd house. She has it in opposition in her 8th house. And then she has it in her 12th house. Now, as an astrologer, I'm going to give you the really kind of quick breakdown of this, right? And I think you're going to like it. First of all, she is a natural, true psychic and medium. How do I know that? Because you always take a look at the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th house. Those are the psychic houses. Well, what's going on in those? Well, in the 4th house, she has the Pallas Athena, which, by the way, is the strength of kind of like the feminine warrior, so to speak, the one that kind of speaks out, you know, and basically stands up to the brashed unabashed. Little different than Lilith. Lilith is more of like healing any of those wounds that might have come about from that. But the Pallas Athena sitting there in Pisces means that she really kind of has an intuitively like, hey, I know how to get back at everybody. Wait, you're going to sense a theme. Then in the 8th house, she is a Cancerian. So she's got the water signs in all of these because in her 12th house, she's got Scorpio. Now, let's start to kind of pick this apart a little bit and do me the solid and just really kind of accept the idea that, first of all, this is verified by 3 different sources that this is her birth time. I get crap all the time about, oh, did you get the right birth time? Did you blah, blah, blah. Yeah, 3 places on the internet, separate sources. They all might have looked at each other, but it's become legend and lore. That, and when I start to explain this, it makes perfect sense, right? And by the way, I had kind of mentioned that she had changed geology. One of the things in her legend and lore is that on this latest tour, she actually seismologically changed came up on the Richter scale is what I'm trying to say in her concert. The epicenter was the venue she was playing. She registered a 2.3 on the Richter scale during Shake It Off. Guys, this girl's a mover and a shaker. And let me tell you something, it's in her chart. So let's focus in. Great that the sun is in her 1st house. We're going to wrap around and get back to the Mars part of it here in a second, but let's take a look at the 2nd house because this is a Maximus stellium here. She has got Uranus, she has got Mercury, she has got Neptune, she has got Saturn, she has got Venus. Now they are in you could consider Uranus and Mercury in conjunct. You could consider Uranus, Mercury, and Neptune in conjunct. You could consider Mercury, Neptune, and Saturn in conjunct, but none of them are in conjunct with Venus. And this is probably a good thing for everybody here. However, Venus is in conjunct with Vesta, which is over there in the 3rd house. We're going to get to the 3rd house and how she communicates here in a second. But taking a look at the 2nd house, the 2nd house is the house of Taurus, right? It's the house of stability. It's the house of money. Now all of you are going, oh, yeah, house of money. There you go. By the way, you're sensing a theme here. How do you get over on people? You beat them. So Uranus is going to represent the idea that she's going to do this in a rebellious sort of way. In other words, it's a non-traditional role. Second of all, it's Mercury. In other words, she's going to use her voice in order to get what she wants and needs. That is her stability. That is her business. That is her product. Neptune is kind of a dreams come alive. And by the way, she's at an 11 angle there. Dreams are kind of going big and they're going hard for sure. Then you also have Saturn. So there is a very good basis in which she is going with this. In other words, she feels very comfortable with this because this is also an earth sign as Saturn sits in Capricorn here. All 4 of those are sitting in Capricorn. And guess what? That is in a wide conjunct from Uranus to Saturn. That means a whole boatload of stuff there, right? So not only is she able to kind of like communicate the right way, but she's also able to communicate in ways that you didn't see coming. This is part of the reason why it is that when somebody buys her catalog and starts to control her, she says, oh, I'm just going to make another catalog over here. Oh, and by the way, my fans, don't buy that other stuff. If you've got it, great, put it on your wall, but don't play it anymore. I'm going to re-record these and make it sound like just enough different so then you can say it's still mine. But since I own the writing rights to it, I can do whatever the hell I want. They own the publishing rights, so I'm going to republish them and make my money and get out from under the man. Oh, God. I want her to be my spirit animal. So one of the challenges, though, that she has with this style placement is that she could look a little superficial. There's a little superficialness here to Taylor Swift. And before you go off on the rails and say, she's all when she's very superficial, she's my girl. Calm down. I'm talking about her astrology. She is, however, somebody that has a very good perspective about what she wants to do and where she wants to go. It actually comes up in three places here in our chart. Before we get to the third house, I have to talk about the opposition here. Because in opposition, she has Chiron in wide conjunct to Jupiter, in conjunct to the moon. By the way, the moon and Jupiter are sitting here together. And I'm gonna kind of go over this a little bit here. Taylor Swift is really known for her generosity. Those of you that haven't heard or read these reports, she is ridiculously generous. As much as she is a powerhouse and an absolute cash cow for herself now, she also has no problem writing the check. By the way, she doesn't mind not having the money. What matters is that it's not going to go to some business executive that probably didn't do a damn thing once they said, oh, sign this here. Like they didn't do anything for her. However, you know who she took care of? Every single one of her truck drivers. She gave them no less than $100,000 at the end of the tour. And let me tell you something, those guys bust their asses. Anybody that's ever done any stagehand work or anything with moving equipment, she had 50 truckloads, guys. That's amps, that's staging, that's equipment, that's wardrobe, that's everything, right? And recognizing that she was willing to turn around at the end of the tour and say, oh, I'm going to scratch out a check for about $4 million and give it out to everybody. Oh, and by the way, she also took care of anybody on the stage, behind the scenes, the technical people, the light people, the wire people, the connect the dots people. She took care of all of them. This is an incredibly generous placement here, right? She really, truly is. And let me tell you something, like she had my respect because she's her, right? And the only thing I can compare it to is somebody like, say, Alanis Morissette that spoke a very specific kind of little angsty, little whatever, but she was poppy and I head over heels for her. I'll be here all weekend. But the only comparison that I really had was someone like her that had that kind of level of success. Taylor really became a machine. And part of it was because of her generosity. Also, the astrology talks about her healing dynamics here because she has a very important connection, right? On her and Travis, yeah, I'm absolutely going to pull out Travis Kelce in part 2, Darlene, for sure. That's why I'm going to do this in 2 parts. I also want to get a little bit more into her numerology, her life path work, and why it is that she's so important to not only herself, but why she inspires so many people, right? And it's an idea. And by the way, after years of being in bands, one of the biggest things that I would always do, every band I was ever in, we would always stop for a couple of minutes and we would get to know the wait staff. We would get to know the bartenders. We get to know the people slugging the food in the back and everything else. And it sounds a little crazy, but you had a much better show when the waitress kind of knew that you appreciated them, right? Like it wasn't just a job. And listen, we were a band, we were making $50 for that night. And if we gave her $10, like that was, we just gave you 20%, right? The better way to show gratitude is that. So, I'm also coming to this as, I don't care if you're playing a dive bar or you're playing, Xfinity Arena, right? There is such a great way that you can approach life. And I'm telling you, she's knocking it out of the park. It happens to sit in this 8th house, again, which is other people's money. She's a Cancerian in the 8th house, which means that she is going to be the steward of said money to take care of everybody else. Part of the reason why she has become such a huge figure in all of this, and don't worry, I will get to the political stuff here in a second, but part of the reason is that her game plan is to take as much money as she can and then turn it back into other things. She is 100% doing that, which is good to see, because if she didn't, she would kind of look like a little bit of a sniveling witch. But she's completing the circuit and she's doing her job on the other side of it. Now, Chiron sitting in the 8th house in Cancer, well, we might want to check Travis's chart, because I'm going to clue you in on part 2 that I'm going to go and do tomorrow. But part 2 literally talks about her healing through her family. Is Travis the one? He might be, whether he likes it or not, because timing means everything right here. She's a life path 7, and she's going into a 6-year. Oh, God, don't even get me started. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Tune in. But back on this 8th house, the other interesting dynamic of this is that it plays into, and it is trine into the Pluto. So her empowerment goes into, she's got a power combination, and you look for these in people's charts, right? You have the power combination of Pluto in the 12th house, 16 degrees. She is a wide trine to Jupiter, and then Jupiter is in opposition to that whole stellium down there. So guess what? She's not only going to be uniquely qualified, she's going to say the quiet parts out loud. She's also going to dream big, and she's going to achieve big. Oh, by the way, that 8th house is also an immature person would like go totally Sylvia Plath here and write lyrics about breakups and, and so forth and so on. Now, a mature person is going to say, let's actually help people. Let's actually do what is judicious here. Let's bring that out. And by the way, with her son being in Sagittarius makes her a naturally curious person. She wants to know how the world works. She's also intrinsically generous, almost to a fault. So she's got to have boundaries around her to help her. But again, her sweet spot in all of this is how little the sun is touched. Literally, her sun stands alone in all of this, right? So all of these other attributes can take off and be like, oh, and she can go home at the end of the night and be like, okay, all right, we did a good job. Oh, I'm telling you, her chart is impressive, guys. I don't care if you're a fan or not. I am telling you, without a doubt, her stuff is a little over the top. Because taking a look at the 12th house as well, you have got Pluto sitting here in conjunct to Lilith, sitting right on her ascending in conjunct to Mars. Now, what does all that mean? As an astrologer in a vacuum, take out the ascending for a second. Whenever you see Pluto in a wide conjunct to Mars, it means like you don't want to tick them off, right? You don't want to get yourself into a position where you're like, did I make you mad? Like, you just don't want to do that, right? Because they can go full nuclear on you, right? She's just far enough away that she's selective about this until it's on her ascending. You don't want to mess with her, guys. You know what you don't want to mess with her about? Women's rights. Lilith is sitting here, and she knows the difference between someone that is healing, someone that is struggling, and somebody that wants to get ahead, right? Could she be president of the United States? My honest opinion would be no, because I don't think that's her role in life. Would she be a good leader? Yes. Does she have to be in charge? Not at all. She is going to be in charge in a unique way. Traditional placements don't work for her. Which, by the way, when I get into the relationship stuff in part 2, there's some challenges with her being a wife with these placements, or in a role of a wife. Let me say it that way. But back on her static natal chart here, she also has Juno sitting in her 12th house. Juno is the asteroid of relationships, marriage, really, right? And that is sitting there in the 12th house. So this is kind of a separate thing. Yeah, Kelly, I love that. To be an ambassador might be a great thing for her. And by the way, could she have better influence if she keeps creating? She's a musician. She's not going anywhere anytime soon. She will take a break. Oh, she's about to go on a 2-year hiatus, right? And she's going to go take care of a family. She's going to go build a family, guys. But right here in her chart, she can kick it back in whenever she wants. Now, the straddle on the ascending with Mars sitting in the first house means that you don't want to tick her off. You also want to recognize that she is a powerhouse. She's not someone to be trifled with, everybody. She is somebody that is going to be able to help you in whatever way it is that you want. But if you upset her, she will absolutely cold shoulder you. Now, some of the other placements that she has, some of these oppositions here in the 2nd and the 8th house. And by the way, these are 2 money houses. The 2nd and the 8th house, the 2nd is the practical side of it. The 8th is kind of the dreamy other side of it, right? Well, with the moon being sextile here to Venus, it's kind of cool. Like on a transit chart, it would actually be like, hey, how you doing, right? But her moon having this sextile relationship with Venus here makes her be amazing, makes her be beautiful, makes her be gorgeous, makes her be a good time. And I don't mean it like that. I mean as in she's going to be a pleasant experience with so many other things, right? Then the Pluto comes in here and kind of sits here and goes, oh, I'm going to act on this because I'm just going to kind of say, hey, here's some trine energy into your voice. She is empowered when she's challenged. She is empowered when she is emotional. So this opposition of Jupiter and the moon together again in opposition means that she is driven by emotion. That's why she writes such amazing lyrics. And yes, they're amazing. I just freaking admitted it, right? I mean, her wordsmithing is fantastic, right? Now, does she get some help with it? Maybe, probably. But she's got a knack for it. She's got to be able to sing them. She's got to be able to say them. By the way, when she was in 6th or 7th grade, the teacher asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she wasn't really sure. And she goes, I want to be like my dad. I want to be a stockbroker. And her teacher said, so what does a stockbroker do? She goes, I don't know, make money. I guess I'll make money. Oh, she's making money. Oh, by the way, there is something called Taylornomics. There is actually a class being offered next year at Harvard called Taylornomics, which talks about the actual economic effects of what Taylor does, her tours, her movies, her albums, her impact, right? And by the way, she is atypical in terms of politics. However, if you speak up against women's rights, if you speak up about voting rights, if you suppress anything, whether it be a woman or a minority or a person in general, she is absolutely going to stand up for you, right? She is not pro-woman as much as she is pro-underdog. Do not put baby in a corner. That's what this really is showing, right? And her Mercury sitting here in Capricorn, she gonna use facts, dog. That's why politicians are railing her right now. Politicians, hold on a second, I'm gonna make my face big. Politicians don't like Taylor Swift because she uses facts. She also worked hard for her position in life, another thing politicians don't know much about. And last but not least, people listen to her. Oh, and by the way, taking a look at Mercury about to go into retrograde in Capricorn, it's time to shake it off, everybody. If you don't think she's going to drop some bombs, and she's probably going to have a not great look here during this retrograde between the 13th, her birthday, and the end of the year, or I should say the first of the year, when it starts to go direct. I think it goes back the other way on the 2nd, but it goes direct on the 1st. And guess what? She's going to say something that's going to piss a lot of people off, and I can't wait. It'll be a truth bomb. And she's not anti-DJT. She's anti people that are saying, this wasn't broken. Why did you go break it? And she's pissed about it. And I don't care who she writes a check for. I'm not entirely sure she's enamored with the Democratic side of things. She is from Tennessee, pretty Republican state, quite frankly. But what she doesn't like is when people, I think I saw a video at one point where she railed against this Tennessee Republican congresswoman who basically took away, she voted for abortion right. You know, she basically unhinged everything that was there. And the thing that really got her, it hit her home, and I'm going to point it out in her chart. The part that really hit home for her with this one politician is when she basically put in this anti-stalking law and voted against it. Anti-stalking. Well, Taylor Swift has some stalkers. I mean, I may or may not be one of them. I'm just saying. Right? And she is a person that really relies on like the right things to happen. Security when she comes to an arena, privacy when she's out on the road. You know, when a stalker gets caught, there has to be some at least intrinsic guard for her to feel protected once they cross a line. This politician took it away. She lost her shit, and rightfully so. Because she also, you know, and understand this, she also felt threatened because, and it wasn't her politics, her philosophy, and this makes a ton of sense. Her philosophy in this is, I got to go do this. I got to go be great. I got to go speak my mind. I got to be in my creative self. I've got to pull on my emotions of the moon, and I got to do the practical thing over here. I need you to do your job. She needs every truck driver, right? Every truck driver to haul their shit and get it there on time. Check mark, here's your bonus. She needs every dancer to show up and shake it like they got it. By the way, thank you for doing your job. Here's your bonus, right? The way she looks at things might be a little absolute, but it is highly emotional. Highly emotional. Now, her nodes are sitting in Aquarius and in Leo. Her North Node sitting in Aquarius. By the way, welcome to the age of Aquarius, guys. We are barreling towards this. Why wouldn't she become a public figure and, quite frankly, famous for taking care of other people? Quite frankly, famous for showing the emotional feels on people, right? By the way, the South Node of Leo makes it very comfortable for her to say, yeah, screw you, establishment. Oh, and by the way, how about you talk about the truth? Oh, the South Node is sitting in the 9th house? By the way, every guy that's done her wrong, she immediately says they lied to me. She immediately says they weren't truthful. She immediately says, I didn't feel safe, right? The Tennessee female politician votes against abusive boyfriend safety law. Yeah, that and stalking. That's what went on with that. So for her, she's like, I am missing. I'm missing something if you don't do your job. I am missing something if you don't complete the circuit on your end of it. I need you to be, if you don't want to be with me, that's fine, right? And I remember an interview with her where she talked, I think she was on Ellen. She actually, oh, it's coming, don't worry. By the way, she's going through this through her Jupiter return. Don't you worry. Because right now, she has gone through her Saturn return. And by the way, during her Saturn return is when she was re-releasing 3 of her albums. This is when she was finding her foundation. She knew what she was doing. She knew that she was ready to take things on the way she needed to take them on, right? She went through her Saturn return, I don't know, about 5 years ago, give or take, given this placement. And now she's ready to take off. She's absolutely ready to take off. And by the way, she's done it in such a way. By the way, you know who sold her albums, sold her distribution credits to? Or who sold her credits? Was her dad. Oh, by the way, don't you find it funny that Jupiter and Saturn are in opposition here? By the way, that's a family dynamic. That could make you be a little unstable or incredibly creative. Did you buy the new 1989 album that came out 18 years ago? Oh, it also came out again like 8 months ago? A lot of people did. A lot of people did. So back on the notes here for just a second, having this be, and by the way, having this be an 8, everybody pay attention. She's a manifester. She is a multi-manifester. By the way, Mars, 28 degrees. By the way, you've got a lot of 4 foundations here. Ugh. She's kicking ass and taking names, everybody. She really is. And what's really cool about her, and I'm going to say this because I think she really has a way about her, is that I think that she has, oh, what happened there? How about there? Can I still come in here? How about this? A little bit? All right, I'll talk about her for a second. What I think is really cool about her is that we're watching somebody keep their wits about her while she's in process. And somebody made a comment that, she's got to go through some trials and tribulations. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, let's be honest. If you listen to her lyrics, I mean, December is a great song. Poor Taylor Lautner really got it handed to him in that one. But, I mean, I don't really listen. I'm just saying I pay attention. Anyway, so she later said, like, hey, it was more of like a reminisce, like, you kind of dissed me. It kind of didn't work out. It was all about timing. And her philosophy has slowly evolved into a much more mature way about it. Instead of it being life experience, being, bubblegum boyfriend stuff, it is turning to the much more serious. She's also getting herself ready to build a family. I mean, TikTok, she's 34, everybody. You mean to tell me that she's going to be somebody that doesn't want to build a family? I'm telling you, it's in her chart. There is a tremendous amount of stability. And by the way, she's going to look for the unusual. She's going to look for somebody that is either going to knock it out of the park or actually turn it around and have it be like so unconventional. They'll be like, yeah, we just kind of make it work. Oh, by the way, here's the 8 again with Juno. By the way, it'll be a power move. Travis Kelce makes a lot of sense. Here in the Scorpio, in the 12th house. Oh, and by the way, an 8 and a 7. Maybe I should do a little digging on Mr. Kelce. Did she marry the right brother, though? That's what I keep saying. I don't know. I can get into it. But there is also the effect that whenever Taylor shows up, they literally sell out of all of their food in Kansas City. It's insane how much of an effect. Like, it just gets people excited. I don't know. I think I'm sharing too much now. But she is somebody that is going to want to marry. She is going to be somebody that will heal through family. She has Chiron in Cancer. She's also going to go big or go home here. Now, with Lilith sitting here on her ascendant, this becomes part of her identity, guys. So in a way, though, if she can turn the corner on the maturity level and say, I'm a healed person, I'm in a great relationship, she's going to be amazing. And we're not going to really hear too much about garbage or any of that other stuff. But she does have the propensity to need something being dramatic. That's my only concern here with Taylor. I mean, it's made her great so far. And the dynamics in the poll here make her really kind of look at things in a way where it's like, I'm going to take my lemons and make lemonade. That's generally what she does. However, in the grand scheme of things, when you get into relationships, when you can cut bait and write a song about it, that's great. But when you start a family with someone, you can't really do that. My prediction on this is she's going to write an incredible album about her first child and then another incredible album about her second child. Meanwhile, it might be a bit of a storm all around her, but I pray for her peace because she really is a powerhouse. She's a powerhouse human. I mean, yeah, she's on the record shelves and yeah, she's on the radio. Yeah, she has political statements from time to time, but more importantly, she's a good person. And she ran the risk of being not a good person, but she's really landed on her feet with a lot of things. She paid more attention to the practicality of her placements than she did instead of being the victim of her placements, right? She has Uranus in Capricorn. I'm going to rebel, but I'm not going to be disrespectful. Mercury in Capricorn. I'm going to say what I need to, and I'm going to use facts and figures, but I'm not going to do it just to say, forget you. Neptune, my dreams aren't bigger than what the purpose is. And Saturn is, I'm going to be practical upon practical because that's where kindness lies. Venus sitting in Aquarius means that she kind of sort of speaks for a lot of people here. She has that ability, and it is on the cusp of the third house. Now, the third house is communication, and the North Node sitting in the third house means that she's a great actor, singer, musician. Investa sitting here, that's the thing that looks like a book there in the third house. That actually speaks to how she teaches people. She naturally shows them a different way. I also want to talk to you. I also want to kind of say this out loud. I've been doing a lot of work with a lot of people over the years that have been on the brink. Let's just say they've been on the brink. I cannot tell you how many times I have had typically girls, teenage, although not necessarily young, 18, 19, 20, 24, in that range, say how much Taylor Swift's lyrics helped them through. I want that to sit for a second. Because she could have been angsty, and she is sometimes. She could have been angry, and she sort of was sometimes. But she always walked it back to take on personal responsibility. If you listen to her lyrics as prose, she literally lands on her feet saying, yeah, but I'm okay. Yeah, but I'm a better person because of it. Yeah, but I'm going to be all right at the end of the day. She gives people hope. She doesn't just capitalize on the pain of the situation. She actually encourages people to keep going. That's why I'm a Swiftie. I don't think I could identify or even sing 5 of her songs. And the 5 I can sing, I don't think you want me to. But I will tell you, I have a tremendous amount of respect for someone that can take fame and do what she's doing with it. She's a positive influence. That's why she's a threat to the establishment that wants authoritarianism. She wants you to free think, and she wants you to get through it. That individuality, keep in mind, when she becomes a political target, look at her individuality. I watched some ridiculous thing talking about how she's part of a deep state conspiracy, and Time magazine wants to put her out there so she can activate voters. And maybe you just have a shitty platform, Republicans. I don't know. Maybe she wants people to be able to choose for themselves. And by the way, she's not pro-political. She's actually personal accountability political. You should vote. You should make up your mind. You should make the decision about your child. You. Maybe she should hold up the mirror, and maybe she would make a great ambassador to hold up the mirror for what this establishment has become. How about that one? All right, guys, I'm going to give you the heart tap. This is part 1. I got more. I just didn't want to do it all at once. I got to finish up my my It's a Wonderful Life video. Oh, I can't wait to do this one. All right, guys, heart taps across the board. Taylor, happy birthday from your favorite medium, Brandon. I know. And by the way, our compatibility is awful. I may or may not have looked at our charts together. But then again, I've looked at with everybody else. Good Lord, do you guys see what this looks like? This is her, and I only took 5 of them. It's a little bit of a cluster, really, when you get right down to it. But I'll tell you, it's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned. I'm going to have part 2 come out. I'm going to talk about the numerology, her life path stuff, and who would be a good match for her. We'll take a look at a couple of different people and the aspects as to why Travis might be the one. All right, guys, heart taps across the board. Have a great day, and get ready for that Mercury retrograde. See you soon.